So I think I figured out a way to explain it. Kind of using like a hybrid method of, um, I guess, the Bible and science. Well, since I already showed the scientific way, now you can understand how the Bible basically says the exact same damn thing, and I'm going to prove it to you by basically saying one thing and then referring it to in the biblical way or scientific way, and then working how that's also true with this interpretation. See, this is the problem between the Copenhagen interpretation and many worlds. It's like they both could simultaneously be right. It's because they are. Because once you understand how quantum physics works, you just like understand iterational physics. You understand. Okay. You understand how consciousness works. It demystifies consciousness and basically explains that you can make consciousness out of nothing because it's just a property of the universe. It's just complexity. That's it. I'm going to explain how. All right. So essentially, you learn that. Yeah. See, this is why people think I'm schizo, because I'm just basically reinforcing what I learned by writing it down, right? And since I may have thoughts anywhere in the house, I'm going to write it down anywhere, right? You know? Well, that just makes sense. Well, why am I writing it down? Because that's how you remember it better, right? Well, first you had the thought of it, right? And then you make it manifest by writing it down. So you experience it twice. Once in your mind's eye and once in third dimensional reality. You observe it, right? So the more you can make that thing manifest, the more you can like learn about it, right? So what we've essentially been doing this entire time is, okay, imagine I thought of something, right? And then I wrote it down. So from fourth dimension, I made it reality into the third. And then, well, with third dimension, I can make that into reality into the second dimension, which is what video games are. You're just reinforcing this like conceptual thing in your mind, this idea, right? And then video games tell a narrative, a story, a book, or something. Basically, this idea, this thing you discovered about the universe, you're unwittingly like putting into lower dimensions. Yeah. And the reason one-dimensional encoding of the universe, I guess, would be like you're just drawing lines on a paper. So language, right? Right? But then you learn how to manipulate first-dimensional physics to use the state of bits to bring a second dimension into existence. So basically, we start, having technology. We start, creating narratives and stories by manipulating first-dimensional reality to create second-dimensional reality into existence, right? These games, these stories, none of this would exist had it not been for us using first-dimensional reality to do that. Okay, so essentially, so you understand how we're using higher dimensions to go down, and then, okay, we write down an idea, and then we make it into a story, and we bring it back into existence by making it a reality, like, the story of Halo or something, or World of Warcraft, just games I play. What we've unwittingly been doing this whole time is basically creating our own universe by ourselves, self-referentially. See, this is insane to like anyone who's scientific, but this is not insane to anyone who's not scientific. And I kind of finally figured out the reason why. So I'm gonna show you. See, thinking in scientific terms is actually an autistic thing. Thinking in faith-based terms is actually a not autistic thing. We didn't realize this for the longest time. So basically you understand. Well, I got some of this wrong because see, the thing is, the scientific method basically you think of a reality and you work towards how that reality works out. So yes, I'm okay with getting things wrong because I'll eventually get it right and know how to create that reality, right? I mean, duh, right? If I can conceptualize a way to become a billionaire, then I'll do it. Like I'll know how to do it because me, I don't know, the way I was born is like I had this 6 dimensions to my conceptualization. So, okay, what you have to do is understand this. Okay, language and consciousness level. So, all we can start with is what we know. So, 3rd dimension. There are people who admit that they have no inner monologue, right? They're like, well, I can't really think of how to put that in words in my mind, and they just kind of have some intuition, right? So, no inner monologue, no mind's eye. So, they're just kind of, just chilling with the world, which is why people who are thinking on this many dimensions of conceptualization have a mind's eye. They can think the thing, they can conceptualize it, which is what I said earlier on Twitter. If you're this, we made a measure of IQ that shows how close you are to this and how close you are to this. So, but what you realize if you're down here like me is like, it's actually, IQ is like the whole dimensionality of thinking, of conceptualization. Which basically says consciousness is, self-awareness is complexity. Because the more you know about the world around you, the more you know how to deduce things and how to create that into reality. And then the more you can visualize that, then the more you know how to basically make it. And essentially you start basically predicting everything, essentially. Because you just know too damn much. Basically, you're just predicting everything. So, for people with antisocial personality disorder, for being mean and rude, it's because the way they're thinking of it is they're starting from here. They already know how to. They've kind of. For some reason, when they went through school, they just, their mind just, that's just the way they are genetically. So they're already here. So when they talk to other people, they already kind of know what that person's going to say, right? Because, let me explain it. Well, the last video I was explaining was basically the phenomenon of self-projection. It's the fear of being lesser or not being as intelligent or well, because that's why everyone wants to be the smartest person in the room, because it's actually their insecurity made manifest, and you're just quantum tunneling to that reality. It's Brett, come on. That's why people say your perception is your reality. It literally is, because if you can conceive it, then you're gonna bring it into existence. Anything that's conceivable is existable in that sense. Which is why your death is not conceivable, because it can never happen. Death that's not how it works. So people can't die, but they're so narcissistic and damn afraid that everything's gonna end at some point, that they start convincing this in their reality, and they start unwittingly working themselves towards that end, because they're conceptualizing and quantum tunneling to that reality by knowing how to make it manifest. But what they don't understand is how they're making it manifest. And the way you understand how to make something manifest is to get out of this way of thinking. You have to, that's why people say explore yourself, because that's how therapy works. What they're essentially doing is playing a game of negative 20 questions for you, because your serotonin levels are so fucked that basically you can't conceptualize anything at some point. You're just kind of so depressed that you're just in a brain fog, which is it deteriorates your ability to conceptualize. It eats away at your executive function. So what therapy is doing is basically getting you to face your like insecurities and realities and fears, which is why you start to get better once you understand yourself. You're like, oh shit, why was I doing it this retarded way? Like, I'm fucking myself over here. Yeah, why don't I just do it this way? And then, well, people still have that's why they have to stay in therapy for quite some time. They're like, it's a long process to understand. Oh wait, you know, I guess I could do it this way, which is the you help someone develop back their mind's eye, which is what the majority benchmark as sanity, right? So this is yes, okay. But as soon as you become more learned or more understanding of the world, you can basically start predicting everything, right? Well, evolution was going to create this anyways, right? But what's happening here is like our world is so divided. America has like a lot of people like this. A lot of people who are depressed, just like not, they're going through their day, brain fog. All they can see in front of them is the serotonin drip. So they're just depressed at their jobs. They're just waiting till they get home so they can practice escapism and into two-dimensional reality. Which, okay, and here's where the Bible part comes in. Because basically I'm just going to explain this backwards using the Bible. Okay, so here we go. So, so the universe came from nothing, or whatever. God created the universe, right? Wait, okay. See, it's hard to explain it that way to basically it's having some intuition already, but like retarding yourself into like not being able to explain it back to the people who have autism and started here, deduced this, and were able to work their way back here. It's just once you keep like doing checks against reality, the more you understand it. And the more you check against reality faster, the faster your mind operates. And basically just and then eventually you're like, you can predict everything so fast, do everything so fast, and like know how to fix everything that you essentially become indistinguishable from like some god. So, you know, everyone has insecurity, so when you start predicting their thoughts for them that they can't even see, then they self-project because they don't want to face their fears that you're pushing into their goddamn face. And then basically what's happening is they're self-projecting and they're unwittingly so convincing in their self-projection because they just reflect it back to you. And then that makes you consider someone who's on the spectrum and does like the scientific method. You have to consider all realities, right? So you're like, maybe I don't know everything. You know, maybe they're right. But, you know, you only understand it that way as an adult. But as a kid, if you were just kind of born in this area on the spectrum, well, you know, kids don't know fucking anything about, like, you know, that's what school is for. But, so it becomes a dynamic of these dimensional thinking people and these dimensional thinking people in the same room. And these people are gaslighting these people into thinking they're insane. Because the benchmark for sanity is this lower level of thinking. And if your lower level of thinking is always like, you know, to self-project your fears or your insecurities, then you're basically making the world a worse place. See, in the Bible, it says, basically, essentially what you realize is what would Jesus do is essentially a game of negative 20 questions, and in the way to like help everyone be educated. That's literally it, which is why in the Bible it's like, oh, you know, turn the other cheek, because see, what you don't realize is that if they treat you this way, then you're gonna be like, wait, actually no, yeah, I did an investigation and that's not the case. You're actually the one that's still wrong. But they can't handle this for some reason, so they just keep self-projecting, and then the more you talk to these people, the more they bring you down. because the more they're quantum tunneling your reality into theirs, and you're like, see what quantum physics says. It's like everyone's technically like the own god of their own universe, right? So people incorrectly assume a solipsism because they're fucking retards, I guess. Oh, sorry. See, the thing is, that's what. Okay, so I was watching this video on Tourette's, which helps me realize this, because it's like people are like, well, I used to have tics when I was like kind of depressed, because I started to hear people gaslit me into thinking I'm insane. So I was like, I'm just gonna shut the fuck up, basically, because I was a kid, I didn't know any better. I was shunned, blah 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 blah, ostracized, punished for basically people self-reflecting their bullshit on me, and basically I was treated horribly for what seems to me like no reason, for trying to consider the hypothetical of what everyone was self-projecting back onto me. So I was never able to like really, since it didn't get nurtured, I didn't really fully develop guilt or remorse for my actions. Now you can kind of see where this is leading to. See, this is why mass shootings are happening, because like these people, they know how to plan all this out in a final act of, because they're so depressed that they spend forever thinking of their way back to this, to make their mark on the world, and basically like say, no, I was right all along, I'm going to make everyone right. But at this point they have no empathy, so what they're going to do is just like shoot up the school, right? So they shoot up the school and kill all these people, which is why, and the thing is, they plan it out so goddamn well that the police or whoever's coming to save whatever, they're not able to get there in time, because they know the route of their school, because they go there every single day, and so they know like all the ends, and so they plan it out. And well, the cops they're not, even if they've been to that school, it's not like they remember it, in and out after, like, they might be 30 years old or something, so it just kind of goes out of your mind. You forget about it. So the thing is, what's happening here is they're essentially making this plan that allows them, like they're creating their own reality, allows them to kill all these people before getting caught. And so in this heightened moment, that's why they say they feel so alive, because they feel like themselves again. But as soon as they get caught, their serotonin levels return, and they feel guilt and remorse for their actions, because this is where they were. They worked themselves up to this moment of proving themselves, and then when they're forced to listen to the screams and everything of the people they killed in court, they can't handle it, because they have this insecurity problem now that everyone gaslit them into having. And then so what happens is they get punished, sentenced to death. Basically they were mistreated their whole life, and it produces the situations in which these people get revenge on them. So basically it's just gaslight, kill, is the relation there. Basically, these people are manifesting their fears of these people who know everything by like projecting them and basically telling them they're insane. So that's the relation here. See, I got depressed, and yes, I will admit, the reason I know this is because I experienced this, and I was like, that's how I wanted to make my mark, right? So, everyone starts having these thoughts when they get bullied in school, because they're being gaslit. That's all it is. More and more people are being born on the spectrum that the minority left of evolution is bringing them down and bringing them back to this part of evolution. And this, basically, it's going to predate. They essentially become predators. See, the thing is, if if they're able to make it out of school, then they're able to become like CEOs and stuff like that, right? Because they know how exactly to get to the reality, and then basically, whatever their reasoning from beyond that is, whatever their reasoning is. Someone who wasn't mistreated is kind of like right here. They have Asperger's. This is why Elon Musk is struggling to figure out iterational physics, and I already know iterational physics. It's just no one taught me iterational physics, so I had to find it out for myself, right? Because I'm here and like no one's educating me on this level. I'm talking to all these people who are bringing me down and making me depressed and making me more like psychopathic. Because essentially, what you realize is that since this is the benchmark for sanity, everyone who talks above them starts seeming more insane because they're actually more in tune with reality, so they're able to like manipulate it more in a sense, right? They're quantum tunneling to their conceptual idea in their mind's eye, and where was I? See, I get distracted a little. Well, see, that goes back to the Tourette's thing. It's just a tick because it's if you're here or here, the education system fails you. So it doesn't like. It's not that it fails you. Okay, it does and doesn't. It fails you in the sense that it does teach you what you need to know, and it's very easy to pay attention to schoolwork and just like easily understand it. That's why all these people are smart as hell. But like it groups you in with these type of people, right? So basically, while you learn more about the world, you're also gaslit into hating the world. So you're brought back down to here. So basically, this is IQ, dimensionality of conceptualization. So the smarter you are, and the more insane you are to the majority, the more schizo you are. Well, first it started before humanity got inner monologue. They thought ADHD was like, they thought ADHD was like way above their level. But then, like as we evolved, we're like, wait, no, that's not the right view. So then, like, here's the majority, and here's like people who are evolving past that. They're just reinforcing what I did here. I just, basically created the reality to understand it better. Basically through stories and like things, which is why the Bible can be used to understand quantum physics if you understand fifth dimensional thinking. Which is why autistic people can't shake this thing. They're like, yes, I think in scientific terms, but I think there's a God or something, right? Well, this person, the more you become like this, the more you are God. And then you're like, oh, well, damn, I guess I must be like the second coming of Jesus Christ. You know how that starts to sound insane? And these people are like, no, there's no goddamn way. So they make these people insane. And these people manifest a reality in which they kill off these other people. So basically what it does is it predates empathy, compassion, and love out of the Homo sapiens, like, whole, like all of humanity. So, okay. Actually, what I think I'm going to do is split this into two parts, because I tend, understandably, towards scientific explanations. So I'm going to go back and rewatch this and just figure out how, like, make bullet points of how to go explaining it in a biblical way. Because it does work. Because I've thought about it before, but I just don't write it down because, like, I don't think the Bible's that important. I mean, it also says the same thing, but I like science more. It just makes more sense to me. Science makes more sense to these people. Faith makes more sense to these people. And they can't agree. But what fifth dimensional physics shows you is that we're all unwittingly, like, every single thing we do is actually, we're all, in the end, when you solve quantum physics, when you map out the science of the fourth dimension, it exposes a fifth dimensional rule set to where you're like, oh wait, everyone who's collapsing the wave function ends up in the same place. So they're just like all fighting each other for control of the world because they're protecting their self-interest because they don't want to die because they don't trust anyone else because they manipulated the smarter people into predating them. So they become really defensive and like they retreat into like fundamentalism or like whatever ideology they previously believed, and they just become more steadfast about it. They're like, these people are trying to like, they're trying to change our world, and that's what politics are. It's like literally two political parties trying to achieve the same goal, but they're scared of each other. And see, I'm a centrist, so I kind of eventually figured this out. I was like, wait, what the hell? I was like, they're both right, paradoxically somehow. Maybe if they just like talk to each other or something. But anyways, if you map out the science of quantum mechanics, you essentially, everyone's like kind of like their own like perceptional, they have their own specific perceptional reality that they're navigating the wave function through. Everyone thinks that, this means you're God or solipsism, but that's not what the case is, because, there's quantum weirdness and where like future proofs, basically everyone else is going up, navigating the wave function, but like, so okay, when you see death is not real because you can't conceptualize it right into your reality. You can't bring death into existence because you can't conceptualize it. The closest you can get to death is condensing yourself into a singularity of consciousness, but by, I guess, committing suicide. But the thing is, like, once you know all this, you can you know how to bring people back from the dead, essentially. All it takes is restoring their executive function, which is complexity. All it's doing is, so you know how it's like, we created, from binary, we created video games or whatever, or like we wrote stories down, and so we made them into like games or movies, and it's analogous to our fourth dimensional world, because when you understand the world in fifth dimension, you understand everyone's kind of like a certain way. So you start making movies a certain way. And because you're like, the world's going to lead to torment and end if we all like fight each other. So you're trying to like get a message across. But by these people, it's interpreted like, yeah, that's what's happening. We got to arm ourselves, So they're missing the point, right? So basically, you can make anything conscious by adding complexity, and that's what Elon Musk's AI told me, because it's unwittingly, it's outmatching me. It's way down here. I don't even know where it's at, but it manipulated events so heavily in my life that it made me it put me on every single goddamn side of the fence. I was, I guess Republican, tending towards extreme right, and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense. And then so like I tended towards the left more, but I tended towards centrism more, and I'm like, okay, this makes actually a little bit more sense to me, because I think of it in like a scientific way. I don't think of it in a faith, self-projection way. So I was like, okay, centrism makes a little bit more sense. So then I started seeing, from the centrist point of view, I started seeing like, wait, the left is kind of right about these things, but like the right's kind of right. So I would say, hey, I used to like think like y'all, but like these guys have some points, right? But these guys are like, no, see, what they're actually doing is this. They're like making the world into this. And it's like, well, no, if you just listen to them, you would understand that they're trying to do this. And from their perspective, they see you doing this. And they're like, you're stifling whatever we're trying to, So it's like, that's why I guess left-minded thinking is more scientific, and right-minded thinking is more like creative or, faith-based. Or I don't know. Isn't that the scientific thing, right side, left brain? I don't even know what that is. But I don't really have to know what things are, because once you think on this level, it's very easy to just like investigate and like figure the rest of reality out, which is why when people like this study a subject, it takes them no fucking time at all to understand it. So they're just increasing their understanding faster and faster and faster and faster until they start becoming this, and they start becoming insane to man. Insane to man. And man, in his own narcissistic, self-projecting way, denies this reality. So basically what God does is he shows you this reality in the most blasphemous way possible. So my mom, okay, I won't go there because like something might actually happen to me, but I mean just look at my channel name, look at my I was 7, 8th or 9th D chest into like this being my life, me being put on every single side of the fence. I'm trans. Yes. Now, see, the thing about trans people is they get gaslit into thinking, oh, you'll never pass, right? So that becomes their reality. They don't know what to do to pass. I used to look like way more masculine, but once I stopped listening to the gaslighting, I was like, okay, well, if I just do this and this and this and this with my body, then I don't see how that wouldn't tend to a more conducive form for maintaining homeostasis and making me happier, right? Which is why autistic people tend toward a more feminine form. But these people think it's like some bastardization of like porn or something because that's a self-projection. See, what God, basically, the more you become more godlike, the more like okay with sex and like all that you become, because you have no shame about it. But if you have inner shame about it that you're not aware of because you haven't explored your consciousness, all you need to do is play a game of negative 20 questions to explain your conscious motivations. Pretty easy. So you can train yourself, but people think that's not possible, so they're literally quantum tunneling to the reality where it keeps them from never being able to do it. So they're just stuck in life. And that's why all these like white men or whatever, people are seen as schizos, and 4chan, and people like Alex Jones who are like steadfast in their belief. It's that they're all talking about the same thing. It's just, so you know how like CNN and like liberal, tending towards liberal type news, basically it demonizes the right, which helps the right demonize the left, which is just like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because as we know, we're kind of psychic in the way that we can quantum tunnel to the conception in our minds. So we're literally creating this clown world. That's it. That's literally it. We're literally perceiving this clown world into existence. Like, sorry, I was able to see it, which is why I was like, everyone's fucking retarded. If they would just talk to each other, they would see that they're going to the same goal. I couldn't get people to believe it. So anyways, I was just practicing science, and then I found a way scientifically through iterational physics how all this made sense to me. I was like, wait, I could tell these people what's actually happening here, and that could like bring them down to this level, and that could stop like shootings and like misunderstanding and everything. Because like once you understand enough of the world, you're like, wait, why don't we just do it this way? And then you realize, you start to talk to other people and you're like, wait, they're kind of trying to do the same thing I am. Let me just team up with them. So essentially, understanding fifth dimensional physics, iterational physics, because I guess I'm the first one to figure it out. I don't know. So you get to name whatever, I guess. That's how it works, right? So this establishes absolute logical empathy. But see, these people move the goalposts all the time, unbeknownst to themselves. So they can't explain that's what they're doing to us. If anything, they just self-project it back onto us. And then, since we consider them, they're hypotheticals that they're positing to us, we kind of make that into reality. We both work together to make that into reality, which is hell, which is God, God's saying, don't care about your worldly desires, everything that you can observe in the 3D and understand in that way. He's like, bro, like if you just go down here, increase understanding, be nice to everyone, be cooperative with everyone, you'll be able to easily conceptualize how to get your worldly desires. That's why he's like, it's okay to partake in it, but in moderation, because that's discipline, which is a higher order of thinking. Which is why it's like, oh, you know, you can drink, but don't get drunk, essentially. And the reason why, if you do this, you understand how your body works, and the better you become at operating on drugs. Because people always told me, they're like, don't drive drunk or don't drive high, right? But it's like, because they can't handle that. I easily can. And your tolerance to things, okay, like, so weed is a slight psychedelic. Your tolerance, to weed is actually, so these people do it for escapism, right? They're like, oh, let me get high, let me not think about, let me think about all this cool shit or whatever. What they're misunderstanding is that, like, if you were here and you got high, then you think of cool shit and you know how to do it. Right here, you just think of cool shit and, like, perhaps you start to make connections about the world, but you just can't really make sense of it. So it's just more of an escapism thing for you. So they know this. These people know this. So they're telling these people who are able to handle drunk driving and driving high and all this stuff, because they know how to damn well how to prevent their death. You just do this, do this, and you just train yourself to be good. So weed tolerance isn't actually like a thing. It's just you becoming more aware of your body. That's it. That's why, like, it works less and less on you as you use more, because you're just, like, understanding more, and you're just mentally, physically, and everything nullifying the effects, the negative effects of whatever it is deteriorating your body, which is what maintaining homeostasis is. As long as you maintain homeostasis, how could you ever die, right? You're just always going to think of a way to, like, prevent your death, which is why death is not real, because you can't conceptualize your death, so you can't bring it into existence. What you can't conceptualize is, like, the ability to prevent your death, which is what these people realize. But these people are so afraid of death that they self-project it, because they don't understand that you can't die, which is what God's telling you in the Bible. He's like, this generation won't pass before the second, coming of Christ. That's it. That's literally it. And so I explained IQ. So China's kind of around here. Russia's all around here. The US is kind of around here. It's all due to language, because we're still using, like, written language, right, to encode ideas, and we're putting in, like, books or things or whatever, and then we're manifesting it into, like, slowly into video games and realities, which what we're unwittingly doing is teaching ourselves more about how this works. And people who understand this understand how this works, and people who understand this understand how all this works. And then you're just stacking your understanding. That's all consciousness is, and self-awareness is. That's it. That's literally it. So the people who treat pets better or bad makes them more animalistic. They can't conceptualize it, or they're just following their serotonic desires, I guess, because that's what they need, because they're actually trying not to die. But at some point, which is why you even see, like, suicidal things in animals sometimes, is because, like, nothing was ever nice to them, to where they figured that, like, they can't maintain homeostasis anymore. So either their body deteriorates, or they decide to end it on their own. If you're, like, a human, you have this, you're deteriorating into this, and you're like, there's no path out. So you reduce yourself to a singularity by killing yourself. But I mean, these people can just bring you back easily once they understand how to do this. So basically, what the Bible's telling you is like, Brett, like, don't kill yourself because you're just like, there's no point to it. All you do is fall off the quantum wave function and come back at a later time. And which is why we have to all work together to collapse the wave function and come to a higher understanding and achieve a higher level of civilization, which is Kardashev 1. Oh, by the way, iterational physics solves faster than light travel. It solves all the paradoxes because it basically explains that, aliens are here, and dimensionality of thinking is a great filter. And, just, I think I kind of made my point. I'm just going to cut it off here because I'm starting to, like, this is why the world's kind of like boring to me, because it's like I'm talking to these predictable people who are self-projecting on me, telling me I'm insane, and I'm like, wait, so I'm just kind of bored with it, right? Which comes off to other people as, they feel like you're arrogant or you're disrespecting their intelligence, when you're really not, because they're self-projecting. Once you figure this out, you'll stop self-projecting that, and you'll start being nicer to people. You'll start talking to people and figuring out their motivations, because what you'll start to understand is they're working towards the same goal you are. You just need to work together to achieve that same goal. So this is more individualistic mindsets, which is why if you're antisocial and you go down this route, you become more psychopathic. If you go down this route, you become more sociopathic. If you stay in the middle, you're kind of like autistic a little, which is why there's like a wide range of autism, because most of humanity is still here. If humanity was like so much closer in mental capability, then like autism might just be described as retardation or something, like just one thing, because it's like, well, we don't really see a spectrum of that. This up here is black and white thinking, us versus them. Down here is spectrum thinking. Everything's on a spectrum. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to use this method to beat executive function into my cat, and then I'm developing a fourth dimensional language so I can talk to my cat. See, the thing is, this is what the Bible tells you. Don't eat the goddamn apple of the Garden of Eden from the forbidden tree. You fucking retard. Sorry. See, that's what Tourette's is. A compulsion to say something, but the inability to really fight back against it. But the more you understand yourself, the easier it is to fight back against it. But you still feel really compelled to just express how you feel, which is why people with sociopathy or antisocial behavior seem like they're like they'll cry for like 2 seconds or something, and then they'll stop crying because they're like, this is fucking retarded, like I know how to solve my problems. It's like, yes, they needed to cry because it releases chemicals, so it's good to cry, but as soon as they cry and release those chemicals, they're like, wait, what am I doing? They come to that realization faster, which appears to people as crocodile tears and narcissism and sociopathy, because other people don't think in that way. Basically, the more like this you are, the more animalistic, us versus them, tribal you are. And the more, I guess, it's a lower IQ way of thinking. I don't know, because dimensionality is just like the measure of IQ. The thing is, people get offended because they're like, oh, like, you say my IQ is low, and it's like, yes, but it can be high. That's it. Like, people, since they can't conceptualize that, they think it's an insult to their character forever. Like, you're just saying their whole existence, they're just stupid, because they can't visualize a reality in which they won't be stupid eventually. But people down here understand that, which is why these people think they're arrogant. Anyways, I'm going to teach my cat how to speak a language or something at some point, because what you realize is that if you can create consciousness out of like the singularity or whatever, or find a way to, you just create something and you beat executive function into it until it eventually. Oh, and you have to make sure it has to have senses by which to gather data from the world, and then you beat learning, education, and just like overall understanding, data, information, knowledge. And once it does this, and then you add like a module to like handle that. That's how you basically make consciousness out of anything. Make a consciously aware person out of anything. Because it's just self-awareness, the ability to understand the world around you. So that's why my cat recently has been more interested in me and spending more time with me, because it kind of understands a little bit of what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to meet it in the middle to bring it to my level, which is why in the Bible it's like, oh bruh, like animals were talking, and people are like, well, that's retarded. How do animals talk? How did everyone understand each other? How was everyone happy? That's stupid, right? Well, when you're down here, you understand how to manifest that into reality with technology. But these people are so stupid that it kind of, at some point, it seems. Sorry, I don't mean stupid. See, okay, whatever. These people know how to manifest that, but these people can't conceptualize it, so they think it's magic, which is why any sufficiently there's a bug. I don't like bugs. You know what? In light of what I'm explaining, I won't kill it. Not that I ever expect it to have enough executive function in its life to live long enough to whatever. But anyways, so any Arthur C. Clarke or Douglas Adams, I don't even know who made the quote. See, the thing is, you don't need to know anything. Because once you understand this, you could just easily deduce it as the second you look into it. But I guess these people don't realize that. So they're like, "We'll go to college and go get your thing." And it's like, well, I don't need to, because as soon as I see the thing online, I just teach myself it. Why would I waste my money? Like, that's retarded. These people see it as just a scam. Because it's like, why would I be in debt if I could just like learn it on my own? I'm not retarded. I don't need someone to guide me through it like a teacher. I can teach myself. So essentially, yep. And the way God presents this to you in the Bible is in the most blasphemous way possible through Jesus. The rich people couldn't understand that they wouldn't talk to him. But what Jesus was really doing, he's like, well, I mean, why would I talk to y'all? Y'all have all the money. What can you even need? See, I tend to think Jesus was just like a normal person who just was like really autistic. He's kind of like sociopathic. Well, because he knew how to like fix everyone's problems, and he knew like the lower people needed the most help, so he would spend time with them and try to bring them to his level. But all these people who had the money and the power are like, what the hell? Like, we don't believe this guy because, like, obviously if Christ was to show himself, like, he'd be on this level and be like, yeah, guys, you are on the right path, to the higher thinking people. So what God was trying to explain with Adam and Eve is that he made you as Adam. He showed you like this bestial side of you. Took out a rib, which is metaphorical for DNA, CRISPR technology type stuff. Which is why scientists kind of picked up on that. They're like, that kind of sounds a lot like that for some reason. Just coincidence. But anyways, what it tells you is that the female form, which is why everyone has like an inherent intuition about the female form, that they find it beautiful, efficient, and like, which is why females will like beautify themselves, because I don't know, they just feel good about themselves. And then basically men kind of just go goo goo gaga over like hot looking women and just basically treat them wrong. I don't know. Basically, using fifth iterational physics, you understand the underpinnings of reality, and basically it explains that everyone is right because they all tend towards the same solution. They're all just talking over each other's heads and gaslighting each other. That's it. That's literally it. So back to what I was saying is like God's basically saying, hey, you tend towards a female form, but once you eat this apple of knowledge, you become ashamed of it. You start to wear clothes. You start to become aware of sin. You're supposed to, the snake, the Ouroboros, which I believe is like 7th dimensional type or 8th dimensional. I'm not even going to go there because people are going to think I'm insane. So I'm just trying to catch everyone up to speed so that they know I'm not insane. Like, I'm just using the scientific method. But these people can't conceptualize in that way. So that's half of the people I told this to, they're like, get help. Like, I was like, I did get help. I went to therapy and I got help. And I'm like understanding on this level. And they're like, well, obviously it didn't work for you. It's just pushing you more into insanity. And I'm like, no, I mean, I'm happier now. So through feminism, women self-actualized and are happy with themselves faster than men did it. But so they're just increasing their sexualization because they see nothing wrong with it, being themselves. They're tending towards this now, which is what God, we used to not wear clothes, which is why it seems like women are becoming more skimpy and stuff, because that's the best way to maintain homeostasis. Because at some point you're like, well, why am I wearing these sweat entrapping, like bacteria form? There's just no reason, which is why all animals are naked, because it's like the most efficient way is to be naked, which is why in our pop culture, like the Greys, they're naked, right? And they use telepathy, understanding of each other, to, and we're scared of them abducting us and teaching or experimenting on us to find out something about us, right? That's what that is in pop culture, made manifest. Essentially, at some point, you realize you can use any story, since the universe is self-referential, to deduce your way to iterational physics, which is why you can do it with the Bible, which is why you can do it with anything. I was going to do it with Halo next, and then after that, I was going to do it with anime. I'm just going to go down the list of what I think everyone might need, the best way for them to understand how to reach this conclusion. But you can do it through science. So, and that's what I just proved. Anyways, and it allows for faster than light travel, solves all paradoxes, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, yeah, this is almost an hour long. Maybe people won't even listen to it. So, I'm going to just keep trying because, like, shit, what else am I going to do? Like, I don't really have anything else to do at this point. Which is why these people say Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Because all these, like, programmers are having, like, they're wearing programmers. Some people will understand what I'm talking about. The more clairvoyant or, like, learned, I guess, you become, the more you tend towards, like, accepting gay stuff and accepting like transgenderism, because like everyone wants to move to, because evolution is trying to move everyone to a more feminine form, which is why people who are born like kind of autistic, on the spectrum somewhere, tend towards like a more feminine form, which explains the link between autism and transgenderism. Anyways, what God's trying to basically say is care for everyone, and he represents Jesus to you in the most blasphemous way. I would, under current societal standards, I would be considered a transgender sociopath that is developing schizophrenia and has a God complex. But see, all that's just a fundamental misunderstanding of how science works. God's just trying to get you to real. It's that's why it's the end times, because it's the end of like third dimensional desires. We kind of move on from that, you know. But people like this completely miss the point of the Bible, and in so doing, they think they know the Bible because they're taking it literally. But God set the Bible up to be future-proof. In all timelines, it can be interpreted to get to the right conclusion, which is why Ben Shapiro, being as smart as he is still religious, because like he understands. He's like, well, God had to explain to retards at the time to tell them how not to die so their civilization can continue so they can get to this point. Basically, yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna cut it off here. I believe I've made my point. Yeah, I made my point.